Glad you're staying with us right here on The Exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. The maritime industry has sailed past some bumps at sea in recent months, from maritime accidents to averting a European ban on Filipino seafarers. We get the perspective of shipping companies with Philippine Transmarine carrier CEO Gerardo Borromeo. Tito, great to have you with us on The Exchange. As a ship owner, what are the challenges ahead for the seafaring industry?
Thanks, Rico. It's a great question. The situation is such that the shipping industry has committed to achieve net zero emissions by the year 2050. So already investments are being made in the hardware. But we can't just look at the hardware. We also have to look at the software. And just as advances are made with hardware, we have to make sure that our seafarers, our global maritime professionals, keep up to date. They've got to be upskilled and reskilled so that as technology becomes available, they're ready to continue the work, because it's a competency that will assure these vessels operate safely and securely and efficiently.
So, Dito, how are you upskilling and reskilling these seafarers to be in tune with the times and with the technological advancements?
Well, one of the things we have done at PTC is to think ahead, to think of the future. And even before the IMO came up with a 2050 objective of net zero, we were already thinking, what do we need to do as a company to be relevant in the year 2050, because by then we would have reached 150 million people as a population. What do we need to do to ensure that we are continuing to be relevant? And that means continuous education, because the way of the future is going to be driven by technology. More digitalization, more automation, and the choice of fuels like green hydrogen, green ammonia, green methanol. How are we going to deal with that and transition from the old technologies to the new? That means that our seafarers, our GMPs, our global maritime professionals, need to know what kind of skills, so they've got to be upskilled. So already now we are going on a path, we call it the Capstone and Cornerstone Project, where we are retraining people. We think it'll take a 3-year cycle to continue to close that gap. We won't wait on what the technology will be. We can't make that bet.
You have to be ahead of the curve.
We have to be ahead of the curve, and the way to do it for people who are on board now is to continuously train them. At the same time, we have to look at the pipeline of next generation Filipinos. How do we encourage Filipinos to consider this as an important industry where they can participate? After all, it is an industry that is moving the world, and that's something that we should recognize as a country. This isn't just a job on a ship. It ensures that global trade happens, and happens effectively and efficiently.
And being proactive, being ahead of the curve, is this just an initiative of the private sector, or is there synergy between the government platform and the private sector in promoting and enhancing the career of a seafarer?
Well, the government looks at this from the standpoint of remittances. So they would like to make sure that Filipinos continue to be part of this. And we have to thank President Marcos for his efforts to make sure that the Philippines remains in the crosshairs of the Europeans. Remember, they had this question on our certification, and he worked with them and talked to them to make sure that we would have the continuing opportunities to work on board.
But how big a boost was the European Commission reiterating its continued recognition of our seafarer certificates?
Very important. It just shows that the Philippines has continued to do its share, but there's still so much work that needs to be done. So while we are working with government, this is public-private partnerships to identify the pathways forward. As the private sector, if you ask me what keeps me up at night, is making sure that we have the next generation of Filipinos still wanting to be global maritime professionals. And at the same time, we've got to make sure that the people who are on board today continue to be competent. So we, for example, our platform is fully accredited by the European Union through the Belgian Maritime Inspectorate. We can issue a Belgian license which will be accepted in Europe. And we did this, we took this effort together with our principals because we anticipated that there might be rough sailing. But we are still working with Marina, we're still working with the Department of Transportation, but we're showing that it can be done. And this is the way forward.
All right, that is your path, that is your journey, but what about the rest of the industry? Are they on the same wavelength? Are they on the same path as you in training, especially the maritime schools, for us to be global maritime professionals?
They're getting the message, and they know that we have to change. And so government is serious, the private sector is serious, because if we do not, then we're compromising the opportunity for Filipinos, and we're also compromising the opportunity for the crew management companies from the Philippines to continue to participate in this very important industry.
But on the other hand, isn't the local maritime industry also being sacrificed because the best of the best are going overseas, but here we are not maybe training enough of our local seafarers, and we have seen accidents happening over the past year?
Well, the situation is that the domestic industry operates on a different standard. But it can be a platform, a stepping stone to going overseas eventually. So we are working with local companies to be able to provide that stepping stone. And in so doing, we are also increasing the level of safety and the efficiency of operations. At the end of the day, you look at this as not just human resource development, but it's human resource development overlaid with supply chain management. We've got to look at how we manage the careers of individuals as they go from one level to the next. So, for example, working with some of the more what you'd call modern-oriented and forward-looking local operators, we're helping them prepare their platforms, and they recognize that eventually their people will also leave, but we also have the supply of people coming in, the students, the new entrants.
And we also have to maintain global standards in our local maritime industry. But of course, seafarers also have an endpoint. They want to be with their families back here in the Philippines. What are the career opportunities for them after being at sea?
There are many. You can come back and work on shore in support of crewing services, to be able to be inspectors, to be technical superintendents. There are still various options. And if they don't longer want to work in the industry per se, they can teach, they can train, or they can be entrepreneurs. Yeah, at the end of the day, when our Filipino maritime professionals are exposed to life overseas, they broaden their horizons. And so many of them end up starting a second line of business.
And bring their best practices back to the Philippines.
Well, that's what we hope. I mean, and if you think of the Filipino diaspora, that is a big opportunity, that they learn the best of the best out there, and when they decide to come home, they bring that home. And ultimately, that is really for the benefit of our country. So if we think of it long term, then we better make sure that the pipelines of education from the college level to the high school level to the elementary level are all geared to making us better, more competent, which suggests a STEM-based education.
Dito, happy Seafarers Day to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rico. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for this Shipping Companies Exchange, Philippine Transmarine Carrier CEO, Gerardo Borromeo. And still ahead on the exchange, where your business is our business, we'll learn from shipping companies overseas about how the local maritime industry can steer clear of rough waters. The International Chamber of Shipping joins us next. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can trust.